season, Lord, all the many blessings that you have given us, Lord. Have given this body, this church, the families, Lord. And we pray for one to less fortunate, Lord. For maybe they don't have that heart of thanksgiving. Maybe there's something that happened, Lord. We just pray that you lift them up, Lord. Lift up this worship service today, Lord. Lift up the words that are spoken up here this morning, Lord. And lift our spirits up, Lord. Let us remember the season we're coming into. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Good morning. Why don't you go shake somebody's hand this morning and greet them? Be really nice. Morning, brother. How you doing? How you doing? How you
Morning,
doing?
Jam. How you doing?
Good, sir. Good.
Good, how are you?
Karen, how you doing?
Howdy up there, gentlemen.
Morning.
Amen. You can be seated this morning. Would you give our worship team a hand this morning? I'm glad that you made church a priority today. Thank you for being here. From the bottom of my heart, I do appreciate you coming out this morning. It's a little chilly outside, but it's good in here. So thank you for being here. I want to share a couple of announcements with you. First of all, this week we are working on a parade float for the Christmas parade for Weaver next Saturday morning. It starts at 10:30. We'll be working on that every night at 5:30 at the Newman's house. And if you want to be part of that, we want you to be part of that. There's probably plenty to do to get ready for that. Also, next Saturday morning is the men's chili cook-off, and that's here at the church, and your chili needs to be here between 8:30 and 9. We need some volunteers to take chili to the park and to serve. We also need some ladies to judge the chili at church. And I've been really tempted to make the hottest chili ever. Not so that it's good, just to see what the judges would do. But I'm not going to do that. But you take part in that. Everything that we can do together as a family is a good thing.
Sign-up sheet in the back.
Yeah, sign-up sheet is in the back, and you sign up today. It's fun, guys. It's all in good fun. It's all just part of being a body together, being a family together, and we're going to enjoy that. I do want to make you aware, Leah and Hilda, they had a car accident this week on Thanksgiving. Leah's pretty much okay, but Hilda's pretty banged up. She's in Stringfellow. I went and saw her yesterday. She said she needs your prayers. They believe she's cracked her sternum, and she's just hurting basically all over. It was just a really rough ordeal for them. She was so sweet yesterday. She's just hurting really bad. She said, please tell them to pray for me. And so we want to make sure that we do that here in just a minute. But thank you for being here. We're excited about what God's got for you today. I feel like the word that He's given me is a powerful word, and I'm excited to preach it to you, and also excited to share communion with you today as well. I'm going to ask the ushers to come up, and as they're coming up, I want you to pray with me this morning. We're going to pray for the offering. We're going to pray for Hilda as well. Let's do that. God, we love you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for your goodness to us. Thank you that we get the joy of being in your house again, God. I'm so grateful to be here. And Lord, it is the freedom we have to worship and to choose to worship and to choose to enter in, God. And I pray that, Lord, as a man of this church, God, we would help set the pulse of the pews, God. That we would get excited about you, God, because in the end, it's all that's going to matter. And Lord, I pray we would direct our hearts to you today. Bless this offering today, God. Use it to build your kingdom and to further your purpose. Be with Hilda today. Bring healing to her body. Be with Lee today. Give him strength not only as he recovers, but as he helps her recover, God. And thank you, God, for them and for protecting them, God, even in this situation, God. So we give you all the glory today. Today is your day, God. And we celebrate you, God. In your name I pray. Amen.
Okay, kids. If you'd like to leave. You're okay.
Your love is like a radiant diamond bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Your love will surely like blazing wildfires, sing with your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the skies. These hallelujahs be multiplied. Your love is like a radiant diamond bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Your love will surely find us. Pouring out my life, grace for
is preaching, and he's preaching to the thousands. His ministry is really booming. He's come into what many would consider success. He's sharing the thousands and thousands and thousands until he preaches the moment where he says, unless you eat my flesh and you drink my blood, you have no part with me. And then he turned around, and there was the 12. And of that 12, only 11 of them were faithful. So he's went from thousands to 11. From thousands to 11. It's because of this right here, and it's very simple. I believe God showed it to me this morning. It's that Christianity is not something I do. Christianity is something I am. Christianity is not something I do. It's something I am. And to the 11, it had become who they are. They wanted to be like Jesus. They didn't want to hear his message. It was something that it's like John the Baptist, who it was said, he's a voice in the wilderness crying, prepare the way of the Lord. Where are the Johns of today? Where are the people that are crying out in the wilderness? In other words, you're getting loud in the workplace. In other words, you're singing out in the school. In other words, you're proclaiming the way of the gospel. Where are those people? It's because you turn around and there's only 11. It's because Christianity has become something that we do, not something that we are. Because, see, for it to be something that we are, you would have to sell out everything that you are right now to be everything that it is. And that's what we talked about last week, was there has to come a point where we throw our all at something. And when we throw our all at something, it changes everything. And today what we're talking about is, we can look at yesterday. I know some of us, we have our downside of yesterday. That we didn't like the way that it went. And we can think about it, and we can think of all the things that we wish would have went differently about Alabama. And we can think about all the things that we wish would have went different against Auburn, or we wish this team would have done better, or this team would have lost. And it wasn't just Alabama and Auburn, Alabama losing yesterday. There were other teams that were losing and winning. But the reality is all of that is yesterday. And all that matters is today. See, we're talking about the significance of now. Yesterday, doesn't matter what I did. You know why? Because I don't get another chance to do it again. So, how many of you, even as parents, you lay awake sometimes at night and you go, man, did I do everything I could for my kids today? Did I leave them something that will impact them for a lifetime? Did I teach the lesson that I was supposed to teach today? Did I respond the right way? Did I point to the things that are truly important as followers of Christ? Did I do those things? Because I don't know about you, but I lay awake at night and I think about these things. And as my children get older, it seems to get harder. And it seems like I have less and less answers and more questions. And they say that's the beginning of wisdom, but I don't know. Because the significance of now is so important. And I don't want to get to the end of my day and realize that I missed something. If you have your Bibles, you can turn with me to Esther chapter 4. There was a time where King Xerxes ruled over the Persian Empire. It stretched over 127 provinces from India to Kush. During this time, he would throw large banquets where the wine flowed freely. And once while he was drunk, he called his beautiful trophy bride to come parade before him and his guest. Her name was Queen Vashti. And on this particular day, she refused to come into his presence, breaking all protocol and bringing judgment upon herself. And in return, she lost all rights as queen, and her position was removed from her. Now, when the king calls, you're supposed to come. Think about it. Remember when David was king and he called for Bathsheba, she came. Even though she had a husband. Why? Because when the king calls, you come. Because if you don't, you usually die. So Vashti was called for, but she didn't want to be some trophy wife that was paraded in front of guests. So she denied the king. And so she lost all privileges as queen. And a new search began for a queen. Young virgin girls from the entire kingdom were brought to the palace in hopes to find one worthy to be the new queen. A man named Mordecai heard of this. And Mordecai had raised a beautiful young woman. It was the daughter of a cousin of his who had passed away and left the girl orphaned. Her name was Esther. Esther was brought to the palace and immediately found favor in the kingdom with the king. However, evil resided in the kingdom of a man named Haman, who sought glory only for himself. And Haman had been advancing in the power and prestige to the point all were commanded to bow and pay him honor. But every day as he passed the courts of the palace, Mordecai refused to bow to Haman. And Haman, enraged by the disrespect of Mordecai, sought to destroy not only Mordecai, but all of his people. Mordecai's people were the Jews. If you're going to pick a fight in ancient biblical times, don't pick it with the Jews. I mean, if you're going to pick one, pick it with somebody else. Don't pick it with the Jews. Now, Mordecai must go to Esther, who was living in the palace, and reveal to her Haman's plan and seek her help, hoping she might gain access to the king, expose Haman, and save the Jewish people. And that is where we pick up Esther chapter 4, verse 7. Mordecai told him everything that had happened to him. He's telling his servant who is going to tell Esther. That's why it says he told him. He said, including the exact amount of money that Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. And he also gave him a copy of the text of the edict for their annihilation, which had been published in Susa, to show to Esther and explain it to her. And he told him to instruct her to go into the king's presence, to beg for mercy and plead with him for her people. Hathach went back, that's the servant, and reported to Esther what Mordecai had said. And then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, he also gave, all the king's officials and all the people of royal province know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they be put to death, unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their life. But 30 days have passed since I was called to the king. This is what Esther tells the servant. And when Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer. Stick with me. Do not think that because you are in the king's household, you alone of all the Jews will escape. 14. For if you remain silent, at what time? At this time. Talking about the significance. Now, if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And stick this in your highlights. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. This implies the present. He didn't say that time. He didn't say in the coming time. He said this time. Why? Because now is so important. You may think that now has no significance. I mean, you're working your everyday job, you go to work, you come home. You go to work, you come home. Your kids complain, you yell at them, you go home. You get up in the morning, they don't want to get up, you wake them up, you roll them out, you throw their clothes on, you roll out the door. Your hair is a mess, your makeup's not done, you're going down the highway, it has no significance, has no importance. But the reality is the only thing that has significance is now. Because that's all you have. We can plan for the future. I can tell April that on our 50th wedding anniversary that we'll dance the dance. But the reality is I can't promise her that. Because I'm not promised that day. I'm not even promised tomorrow. We're only promised the breath that we take right now. Look here, Proverbs 27:1. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring forth. And how many of you have ever lived one day and the next day all of a sudden was radically different? Come on now, it's quiet in here this morning. Let's get awake. It's time for the word this morning. See, we're living breath to breath, and each one is given to us by the grace of God. And I mean, you don't tell your body when to breathe. You don't tell your heart when to beat. So that tells me that I don't know when it's going to stop. And for somebody who has a medical background, that's very troubling. It is. To think that, you know what, I don't tell it when it's time to end. I didn't tell it when it was time to begin. So that tells me that God punches that clock. And so I've got the grace of God that's breathing my next breath. So when I say those words that aren't nice, am I saying them with my last breath? When I'm thinking those thoughts that I shouldn't be thinking, am I thinking them with my last moments? Do I want my last moments to be spent on things that are not of God? Do I want to waste the now? Many of us need God to show us the why, before we ever begin. But God doesn't always give you the big picture of why you're doing what you're doing. He doesn't always give it to us before we can actually see the purpose of it. So that tells me that whatever I do today is extremely important, because I may look back on it one day and realize the significance of it. It's because I can't. It's like this quote I have here. Let's show you. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. In other words, I can only understand life looking back, but I can only live life looking forward. See, I'm living today, but it may be tomorrow before I realize what I did yesterday was so important. If you've ever said the wrong thing yesterday, you'll remember it tomorrow. Have you ever said things that separated your family? Have you ever drew battle lines in your marriage? Have you ever discouraged your child not meaning to? Have you ever discouraged your spouse not meaning to? I tell you, the next day you'll remember it. There was significance in the now. What I did then was important to what's going to happen to tomorrow. And so all these things are happening together. In life, we may not understand what God is doing until we've already been obedient and watched it played out. Then in our looking back, we'll understand the significance of now. Let me show you. Mordecai says this in verse 14. He says, "And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Who knows but that you're married to your spouse for such a time as this? Who knows but that you're the father of your children for such a time as this? Who knows that you're at your job for such a time as this? That job that you spit on, the job that you hate, the job that you don't want to go to, the job that drives you crazy, the person that drives you crazy, the people that you're around. Who knows but that you've been brought to this position for such a time as this, and you're the one that God has chosen to reach him." I don't know about you, but the now haunts me. Because I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. I realize the importance of the now. Sometimes maybe too much. I try to fit too many things into my schedule to make sure that the now is perfect. And I'm trying to live it out because it haunts me at night when I lay down and I have to look back over it and I go, man, I didn't get this done today. I didn't do this right. Man, I should have took a few more minutes with Elijah. I should have spent a few more minutes with Hosanna. Did I talk to April enough today? Did we do it? And I sit there and it owns my brain. Because I realize that it's so short. I had a coworker. I've been at the job I'm at now for about 8 months. Thank you for those who prayed for me for this job. It's been a good one. And I'm so blessed to be at it. And a guy about 3 or 4 months ago got diagnosed with cancer. And he died the day after Thanksgiving. Let me tell you, he was full of life. He was very friendly. He was very fun. He was a great person to work around. He was a great person to be around. Everybody liked him. He smiled all the time. And he was full of life until he wasn't. And now looking back on it, I'm sure he does, wherever he is, I praise in heaven. But I'm sure his family realizes the importance of now. See, Mordecai told her, he said, in other words, who knows but that you've been brought here to where you are, though it may be difficult. Think about your situation right now. Though it may be sad, though death may be knocking at your door, but just maybe you've been brought here for such a time as now. See, maybe Esther, this whole thing, the palace, the position, you know, Esther, the power that you have, maybe it's not just for your deliverance, but it's for the deliverance of your entire people. Maybe it's for the deliverance of the entire people. And I know that, Esther, the time is inconvenient. And my request, it may cost you your life. But this struggle you're having to endure, the struggle that you're having to endure, the struggle is part of the strategy. Esther's brought to this palace. She has this great position. She's found favor with the king. Her future looks bright. Everything looks good until Mordecai comes to her. And he says, you know what? You're here, but maybe you've been brought here because all of our people are fixing to be destroyed. And it's your chance to resolve that. And you have an opportunity to go before the king. You have an opportunity now to do the right thing. And you know what, Esther? If you don't do it, God will bring deliverance through somebody else. it's going to cost you your life. And it's going to cost your family their life. But who knows? It just maybe your struggle is part of the strategy. Look at someone near you this morning. Just look at them. They're good looking this morning. Some of you sit by the people you love. Some of you may sit by somebody you don't. But look at them and just say, the struggle is part of the strategy. Would you look at somebody this morning? The struggle is part of the strategy. The things that you're dealing with this morning. Thank you. Good job. The things that you're dealing with, the things that you're struggling with, the things that you're beating yourself up over, just maybe that thing that you struggle with is part of the strategy to bring out the deliverance of tomorrow by what you do today.
Amen.
What you don't realize, Esther, is what God is about to do through you will be written in history and remembered thousands of years into the future. Tell me there's not significance in now. What she did is still remembered. This is thousands of years later. This is before Jesus, and we know we're at least 2,000 years past that. This is before that. See, what she did in the now wrote the history. It's remembered in history because her now wrote her future. Esther now is important to you. The time you have come to power is important because your now is writing your future. I guarantee you this, the compliments of today will win you the victories of tomorrow with your spouse. The little things you do today will determine the big things tomorrow. It's like this, it's like what decision, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but what decision is the best one for you? Your next one. What decision is best for you? The next one you make. What am I saying? It's like this. If I want to be healthy, the next meal I eat needs to change. If I want to read my Bible, the next verse I read is the beginning. But what I choose next determines where I'll be in the future. Esther, what decision is best for you? The next one. Look here, Esther chapter 4. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to a royal position for such a time as this. So Esther, you need to realize that whatever you choose to do now, although the timing seems inconvenient, it's actually perfect. Why? Because I've positioned you for purpose. Y'all remember us talking about that? How God can position us in a place that we don't know we're going to be in, but it's to work His ultimately purpose. It's because He is like the chess master, and He can see multiple moves ahead and knows what the enemy is going to do before He's done it. So He's placed you in a place of purpose so that in you living where you live, you're already 2 steps above your enemy, already working out the purpose of what God's called you to do. And He's brought Esther in here, and she thinks she's won a beauty contest, but what really happened is she's the key to breakthrough for the deliverance of the Jews. So you thought, Esther, it was just about you, but your success had a purpose. And now in your difficulties, I'll prove they have a purpose too. And we're sitting at home and we're going, oh God, why me? Why me? Why do I have to go through this? And He's like, don't you understand that I've positioned you for purpose? I'm about to break strongholds in your family through your pain. Don't you want those strongholds broken? You know, 2 months ago I was diagnosed with high cholesterol. You gotta love that. High cholesterol means you're gonna have to change some things. But then I was so upset about it, like, I don't really eat a lot of bad things. Why do I have to go through this? And then He reminded me, don't you pray for good health every night? Me revealing that you have high cholesterol is me providing a way for you to have what you want. You said you wanted good health. I showed you where you were unhealthy. Now fix it. And I did. I went from a cholesterol of 315 to a cholesterol of 164 because I realized that it's my decision to make. And then my feet tell me, my heart tells my feet where to go, and my mind tells my body where to go when I eat, when I tell myself to eat. And struggle sometimes is just part of the strategy. I didn't like it. I ate a lot of salad. Mostly because I didn't know what else to eat. And I want to use you, Esther, to bring deliverance not only for you, but my entire people. I will use your position as my platform. Because meaning God, I'm about to do something through you. I'm not about to do something to you, Esther. This isn't me doing something to you. This is me doing something through you. So your position that you're in, that you're uncomfortable with, that's just me setting you up to win. Esther, you saw yourself as an orphan, but I see you as a mighty queen that has won the heart of a powerful king. Esther was an orphan. She was. She was being raised by her cousin. Her parents were dead. She saw herself as an orphan, but God put her in a position to win the heart of a powerful king. There were hundreds. I can't imagine that you decide to be a queen and they just parade in front of you all day and you just pick. It's what you want. I don't know that that would be the best method. I've seen some pretty people that were pretty on the outside and ugly on the inside. But lucky for the king, he had Esther and she was both. And so God had positioned her for this. See, Esther is coming to power, and it's a perfect example of what David said in Psalm 23. Esther coming to power is really living out what David says in Psalm 23, 4 and 5. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Verse 5. Thou preparest a table for me in the presence of mine enemies. Catch me here. Follow me along, guys. See what surely looks like death for my entire people, and what very well could easily be death as I approach the king uninvited. What seems like a problem is really God's provision. See, you're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, Esther. You're in the presence of a powerful king. You're not invited. One wrong move, and you die. And with me, your people will perish. And what would make it perfect, and that would make perfect sense to die like that, except for one thing, that when you should have been an enemy, God has made you the favor of the king. My presence to the king, as Esther's presence to the king is not a burden to him. Why? Because God's made it a blessing. He prepared a table in the presence of her enemy, a Jew in the Persian Empire. Because here a Hebrew girl is in the Persian Empire, and a table has been prepared for her. So she's not walking into the situation as an enemy of the king. She's walking into the situation as against the king. It's all about where God positions you. Anybody else could have powered their way in there to get a seat at the table of the king. But God created Esther with a purpose, and it was to free her people through the presence of her life in the presence of the king. So the things that are happening right now, they're important, they're significant, and we don't understand the timing. We don't even understand the purpose of our pain, but it's only because we do not understand the fullness of God's plan. I mean, we don't understand the purpose of our pain because we can't understand the fullness of God's plan. And what's happening is we cannot forsake the importance of now. So today, when you do things that seem little, you need to do them in a mighty way, understanding that they're paving the way for tomorrow. And oftentimes, what's crazy about it is we're sleeping through today, expecting to make the headlines of tomorrow. We're doing nothing today, but we want to be powerful tomorrow. We're not digging in the Word today, but we want to be knowledgeable tomorrow. We don't have the answers that we need, but we want the answer tomorrow, and we're not even seeking them out. We're sleeping and expecting to make the headlines. Don't you remember the verse that I shared with you out of Genesis chapter 49? It says, Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning, he devours the prey, and in the evening, he divides the plunder. We're not devouring today, but somehow we're expecting to count the plunder tomorrow. Now is what matters. Remember what Mordecai told her? He said, if you remain silent, when? At this time. Deliverance will come, relief will come. Because I'm God and I'm going to free my people, but you're going to die. And your father's house is going to die. And who knows that just now you come for such a time as this. In other words, this time. Not a time in the future, but now. Amen. What you're about to do now has significance. Not only for you, but your entire people. Because if Esther doesn't move, her people will die. Her family will die. She can't wait for tomorrow. today. She must risk it all today. The opportunity to be queen tomorrow hinges on her ability to be obedient today. The future for Esther is bright, but she must start facing the conflicts of today. If she's going to be queen tomorrow, she's going to have to be obedient to what God is doing today. And for you, if you're going to get to where you want to be tomorrow, you're going to have to start asking God, what is He trying to do today? So many people have been living for years making plans on a tomorrow that never came. When am I going to die? Tomorrow. When am I going to work out? Tomorrow. When am I going to start giving to the church? Tomorrow. Because all my tithe checks come in on Monday. When am I going to start teaching my kids right from wrong and really holding them accountable? I'm going to do it tomorrow. When am I going to pray with my spouse? Oh, we're going to start tomorrow. You've been married 10 years and you never prayed. She can't wait till tomorrow. There was simplicity and wisdom in the song Tomorrow. You remember Annie? What did Annie song come out tomorrow? Yeah, in Annie, when she belted out, there was this great wisdom that she was singing. And she said, tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you tomorrow. You're always a day away. You're always a day away. That means I can never obtain you. That's the problem with waiting on tomorrow. It'll always be a day away. But when you act today, when you work today, when you begin today, today is always the now. It'd been better if she'd have sang today, today, today I'm going to find my family. Today I'm going to get out there and make it happen. Today I'm going to love everybody different. Today, because if you make plans today, you know what? You'll accomplish them when? Today. But if you always make plans for tomorrow, they'll always be tomorrow. When am I going to, I'm going to take some time off work tomorrow. Then tomorrow comes and you go. I'm going to spend more time with my family tomorrow. Then you don't. I'm going to do what's right tomorrow. I'm going to start being a supporter of this church tomorrow. And it doesn't happen. You know, it's like this. Do you want me to pay you today or tomorrow? Yeah, you laugh because that's true. Do you want me to pray for you when you're sick today or tomorrow? I'm telling you, when I was with Hilda yesterday and she was hurting, she didn't want me to wait till the day to pray with her. When your marriage is struggling, do you want me to help you today or tomorrow? Do you want the remedy to your sickness today or tomorrow? Do you want your breakthrough to come today or tomorrow? If it's today, then why are you only preparing for tomorrow? How about this? Imagine for a minute that the microscope's not on you. It's not about you for a minute. What if you're someone else's breakthrough? And God is saying to you, just like He said to Esther in 4:14, and who knows but that you've come to your royal position for such a time as this. Your response today will have a great impact on someone else's tomorrow. It's not just about us. Our obedience today lays the foundations of tomorrow. There's things that only Jamie can do. There's things that only Johnny can do. There's things that only Cater can do. And when they do those things, it profits not only them, but it profits other people. And what they do may just be the breakthrough for somebody else. But they're not going to know if they're not obedient today. Wouldn't you hate to know that once you get to heaven and God allows you to look back and you can see everything rolled out like a map of your whole life, that you had the ability to be a breakthrough for somebody else, but you waited and so it didn't happen. And those people hurt another day. They lay in bondage another day. So why is this important? Why is all this important? You got to quit surrendering your significance. If I was your enemy, if I were your enemy, I would want to convince you that you weren't important to the plan. I would want to tell you that you weren't important to the plan. Because if you don't think you're important to the plan, you won't live up to your purpose. If I keep telling you, oh, you're no need, we don't need you here. It takes 11 men to play football. I can do it with 10. That 11th man is going to be like, what? do. But what we don't understand is that when we received a pulse, God gave us a purpose. Look here, Psalm 139:13. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Have you ever knitted something by accident? Knitting seems difficult. I don't know how you start out with yarn and you get a glove. I don't know how that works. But evidently that's the one thing that everybody knits is mittens. That and pop holders for some reason. I never know how enough of those. But I've never just took a ball of yarn, threw it up in the air and said, there's mittens. Oh, there's a little hat for the kid. Knitting doesn't happen on accident. And God here he says, for I knit you together in your mother's womb. In other words, I took careful detail with you. I gave my best work. I didn't miss a stitch. I didn't miss a tie. I put you together and perfectly designed. And we think that we're just another person or another random number. Just stamp me with a number. I don't even need a name. Just give me 007 and I'll be good. But it's more than that. When you received a pulse, you received a purpose. And God took quite great pleasure in bringing you together in your mother's womb. Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. He said something that will blow every liberal's mind. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. When is a baby a baby? I don't know. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. See, before you were birthed in the belly of your mother, you were birthed in the heart of God. And that's why you have so much significance. He said, I set you apart with purpose before you even existed in your mother. And we don't understand that because our timeline is from the birth to death. But God is saying, I even work outside of that. And I put purpose in you before that. And that tells me that every person has great significance right now because God thought about them before they were ever even conceived. God tells Jeremiah, before you were born in your mother's womb, I knew you. And then before you were born, I set you apart then. And if he did it for Jeremiah, he did it for you. When you were created, also, God had already positioned you for purpose. That's why you came into being. It's because God said, oh, now's the time. I'm going to create Kedron. And this is what Kedron's going to do. Because you could have been born anytime. Oh, I'm going to create Rick. I'm going to create Sean. Here, let me knit it together. Why would the God of the universe need to knit anything? He could just speak it and it would be. But he didn't. He said he knitted you together. And if you look at DNA molecules, it's much like knitting things together. It's kind of confusing when you look like it, but it's all spin around. And when you look at everything in detail, it has such structure to be such an accident. Esther went into the kingdom. Why? Because she was positioned for purpose. Where's God positioned you? Do you really think that where you're at right now is an accident? Jonathan, all them hours at Walmart, do you think you were there by accident? Do you think that that's just a random job that you chose? There's probably a lot more to it than that. We often complain because we're not where we want to be in life, yet we've never learned the significance of where we are. We complain because we say, oh, I want to be there. Lord made me the pastor of a church of 2,000. And he's like, why don't you handle the 50 first? It's like me coming up and saying, I'm going to juggle 12 balls of fire. And they're like, man, you can't even catch one when they throw it to you. And I definitely don't want to catch one on fire. But I mean, it's like we don't understand the significance of now. How can I be great tomorrow if I do nothing now? If we try to skip where we are now to take a shortcut to where we want to be, our giftedness may get us there, but our character won't sustain us. It's because we're being built in the now. We get so frustrated with the mundane, but before any great skyscraper can touch the sky, much preparation is done below the surface. I mean, if you come up and somebody says, come here and look at this parade of homes, and all you saw was foundations, footings poured, wouldn't be very impressive. But if they said, come look at this parade of homes, and none of them had those, there wouldn't be homes very long. It's very important what God is doing in the places that we can't see. It's very important when we say, oh God, where is what you promised me? And he says, oh, I'm digging it down. Because before I can build it up, I need to dig it down. don't miss the significance of the work that God is doing in the unseen places of your life. Because once the foundations are established, the walls can come up. But if you forsake the foundations, the walls will never come up. God has given you all you need to accomplish His will. I think in our mind we believe that once God calls us to do something, He equips us to be able to do it. When in fact the giftedness that it takes to complete God's plan has been there all along, and at the proper time He reveals it. It's not that He's just all of a sudden give you something, but He's already knitted that into who you are. Just like when God told Jeremiah, He set him apart before he was born. Jeremiah's ability wasn't an add-on feature to who he was. It was part of the original design. And every detail of Esther's life, all the way down to her physical features, had formed for the very moment she would enter the kingdom. You know, she wasn't beautiful by accident. God said, I'm going to make her beautiful because one day I'm going to need to free my people through her. And she's going to need to catch the eye of the king. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give her all of His preferences. Because at just the right time, she needs to be perfect. And that's what He's done for you. He's drawing you up. He's already got you planned out. And the way you are is the way you're supposed to be. And He's developing you so that at the proper time, you will come into place to fulfill the purpose that God has for you. And who knows what God has been building in you so that He can accomplish something through you. I don't forsake small beginnings. See, what has been done to you has prepared you for what God is about to do through you. You were steel forged in fire, but now you're a sword in the hand of God. You thought it might kill you. You thought it was difficult. You thought that you might die, really. Then you lived. And after you think that you're supposed to die and you live, everybody has this question. Is why? Why did I live? The two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. For Esther, God used a rags to riches Cinderella story to free His people. And you, just like Esther, have an important part to play in what's happening now. And your next decision is so important. See, I cannot face today if I never get out of bed. Remember what we talked about when we said, many are called, but few are chosen? I likened it to a football game. I said, I'm going to play football this afternoon. And I call all of you up and I say, hey, come over, we're going to play football. Everybody come over. And like 6 of you show up. And then we go divide the teams and we have to go 3-on-3, right? It's because I can't choose somebody who ain't there. So God's calling people and He's saying, come on, come to this. But you're not showing up, so He can't put you on the side. It's like God's calling you. He's saying, come out here and do this. I know you're prepared. I know you're capable to do it. But then you're not showing up, so He can't put you on the side. It's like many are called, but few are chosen. And see, now we're getting to this point, and it's like this. We're rounding this thing out, and we're like, man, the significance of now. What do I need to be doing in the now? And the reality is that some of you have addictions that need attention today. But you're always putting them off for another day. And this has been going on for years. And some of you have a calling on your life. And you know that God's called you to minister to others, but you aren't doing what God is calling you to do today. And you keep putting it off. And you need to be obedient today. And then you got some of you who have marriages that are literally falling apart, and you know you can change it. But it would mean you would have to change. And let me tell you, sometimes it's easier for you to change your position than your address. In your marriage, sometimes it's just easier to change your position than to change your address. Some of you have not surrendered your heart and life to Jesus. You keep living for your own selfish ways and thinking that you have plenty of time, but not realizing that the time for salvation is now. Look here, Joshua 24:15. He says, choose you this day whom you will serve. He says, and if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, then choose you this day whom you will serve. Whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, Joshua says, we're going to serve the Lord. See, today is the day to choose whom you'll serve. And today is the day of salvation. 2 Corinthians 6:2, where he says, in the time of my favor, I heard you. And in the day of salvation, I helped you. I tell you what, now God's favor. Now is the day of salvation. It's now. Now is all that matters. It's like this. Now is the day of salvation. God has called you to make a decision. Now is the time. Today you will make a decision to either follow Him or you will intentionally deny Him. Because the reality is when you're given this opportunity, you have the right to say yes and you have the right to say no. But you don't have the right not to say anything. Because in saying nothing, you say no. Because you consciously know that in your heart you're not surrendering to Him. Now is all that matters. And the thing about now, every now that you'll come across is it beckons you to make a choice. I'll leave you with one final focus. A year from now, you may wish you had started today. A year from now, you may wish you had started today. See, every skinny guy that ends up looking like a rock started working out on Sunday. And every great big guy that loves the buffet, they got skinny, started out in one day. And every great preacher that ever preached a sermon picked up his Bible one day. And wherever you want to be, it starts today. Starts now. Don't look back a year from now and wish you had started today. Many of you were sitting here this time last year when we were getting ready for Christmas. We had the trees up. We had the pallet trees up. That doesn't seem that far ago. Think about what you could have started then that you could have now. Think about what you did start then that's different now. For some of you, in the last year, you made your marriage a priority and it's benefited you. You've made church a priority and it's benefited you. Some of you have taken great leaps and bounds and steps and it's benefited you. Think about where you can be this time next year when we're together. And think about who can be with you. Randy, would you come this morning? Today, we must take care of the salvation issue first. Today is the day of salvation. You're going to have to choose which side you want to be on. And as they sing, we're going to move into communion shortly. But as they sing this morning, before we can do anything, I think we need to make sure our heart's right. Because, see, we're not even supposed to take communion if our heart's not right. We're not even supposed to take it if our heart's not right. If we're not prepared, if we're living in sin, we're not even supposed to take it. It's dishonorable to God. And so this morning, let's stand together. Let's close our eyes. And let's just ask God this morning, Lord, today, am I good with you? Today, does my heart belong to you? Today, am I being honest with myself and with others? Because I don't want to dishonor you. I don't want to dishonor you. Today, am I taking the steps to be where I want to be tomorrow? Today, am I making the things that need to be priority today? If God is speaking to your heart about these issues, things that you need to do today, things that you need to do now, can we just come? Can we start our time of communion at the altar? Can we just start our time that way? Can we just say, God, I know I got to do better with my today. I waste a lot of time, God. And I could have read my Bible. I could have already read it. I could have already read all the way through. I could have already been along the road, further down the road to the person I want to be. And I just chose to today. As Randy sings, would you come this morning? This isn't dishonor. This is getting it right.
Thousand times I've failed, still your mercy remains. And should I stumble again, still I'm caught in your grace, everlasting. Your light will shine when all
slides back up there. There's some at the end that I want to show right quick. Throw those back up there. Would you look at this passage here out of 1 Corinthians chapter 11? Paul is getting on to the Corinthians about how they've been receiving communion. He says, "For I received from the Lord what I also passed on to you, the Lord Jesus on the night he was betrayed, he took the bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, 'This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me.' And in the same way, after the supper, he took the cup, saying, 'This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this, and whenever you drink it, remember me. For whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. So then, whoever eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner will be guilty of sinning against the body and the blood of the Lord. And everyone ought to examine themselves before they eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For those who eat and drink without discerning the body of Christ eat and drink judgment on themselves. And that's why many of you are weak and sick, and a number of you have fallen asleep.'" It was serious. We don't take communion as something that I see as taken lightly too often. And we're remembering that Jesus' body was broken. It was bruised and he was crushed for our sin. It's a reminder to us of the price that he paid. And when we take it and we're supposed to feast on it in our heart. In other words, we're supposed to dwell on it and be grateful and look forward to his expected return. So I'm going to ask Cornerstone's elders to come forward this morning. Those that are supposed to be serving communion to you. And what we're going to do is we're going to file out this way, one row at a time, and come and go back out that way. So from the middle aisle down, starting with the first rows. And I want you to get your wafer and get the juice, and then let's just wait and let's take it all at the same time. So this side can come out, and you can start getting on this side as well. You remember one of the final things that Jesus did with his disciples was that he had communion with them. And he explained as they were having the Passover supper, he explained that this bread, it represents my body. And this wine, it represents my blood. And it wasn't an accident. That was what they had, and that's what he used. He loved to paint pictures. He loved to connect things together. And I don't think I will ever be able to see bread and wine sitting together and not think of communion. And I think of what he did. And it was an intimate time with just a few. And even at that time, they dismissed Judas, and he went on to betray Jesus. He had to do what he had to do. Communion is an act of worship. It's a chance where we put our central focus on Jesus, who he is and what he did, and on his return. And in him we honor him in our heart. And by honoring him in our heart, it's like beautiful worship that goes up to him. I think in our communion, it's even more beautiful than our singing can be. Because we're honoring the sacrifice that Jesus made for us in a physical way. While you're there now, just take a chance to close your eyes, just think on him. really just pray and just thank Him for all that He's done. What better time right after Thanksgiving than to give thanks to God for all that He's done, and the ways that He's provided for us this year, the ways He's provided for our family, the ways He's provided for our church, our children, the sacrifice that He's made. All right, as they're coming forward, I want you to take the bread this morning. I want you to look at it. Now, I want you to think about the body of Christ. It says, literally, his flesh was ripped from his back. The cat of nine tails, as it's called, it had strips of leather. In it were pieces of glass and bone. It said as it hid, it would dig into your flesh, and then it would just pull it out. It's almost like plucking it out of his back. And it said surely by the time that he made it to the cross, that his ribs and things were exposed, even just nothing left. They give him death, save one, basically, is what it was called, and it was 39 lashes, because the 40 would have killed a man. And I don't know how you determine that, but that was the belief. And so Jesus was suffering greatly as he made his way to the cross. The crown of thorns, of course, long thorns that dug down into his head. And I mean, you can imagine that there's not a lot of meat around the head, so as it dug into, it probably even scraped up against his skull, and his body was broken for us. Let's bless this morning. God, we love you. Thank you for your body. Thank you for it, God. I pray you continue to reveal yourself through it, God. I thank you that you suffered greatly for us. We love you and we praise you. And Luke 22:19 says, and he took the bread and he gave thanks and he broke it. Would you take and break it this morning? He said, this is my body given for you. Do this and remember me. Take it and eat. As we eat, we honor him this morning. His blood ran down. It ran down his body, ran down the cross, down his feet, dripped to the ground. Can't imagine. Mary, she was at the foot of the cross. I can't imagine what she had to endure as she saw her son go through what he had to go through. Having to hold a baby, watch him grow to a man, and then see him suffer what he suffered. And it's hard for us to think about it because we didn't witness it with our own eyes. But as you look at these Jews, it does favor blood. And I imagine what Jesus did for us. And I'm grateful, and I want you to be grateful today. Luke 22, it says, in the same way, after the supper, he took the cup, and he said, this is the cup, is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you, shed it for you. Let's bless this, Lord. We thank you for your blood that was shed for us, God. That it washes away our sins, God. The nastiness of our life was brought to cleansing white, God, with this. Thank you for doing this for us, God. Would you take this morning and drink? Don't ever take it for granted what he did. God, we love you. We praise you. We glorify you. We lift you high. Thank you for your body. Thank you for your blood, God. Thank you for the price you paid. Help us to remember. We give you all the honor and praise today for it. also at 6 o'clock will be life groups. Your life group, is that right?
It is.
What food we gonna be having?
Super chill.
Super chili.
No, super bored.
Super, okay, soup or chili at Randy's house. It is at 6 at